thanks. Good afternoon, good morning to all of you. Thanks for joining in. I know that time is precious, and thanks for taking our time to hear us out today. As you know, this webinar is jointly conducted by Facets Cloud and OVHcloud, and we have great speakers out here, and I'm sure that the next 45 minutes is going to be interesting to you. I'm your host, Gaurav Mehta. I head the strategy and growth at Facets Cloud, spent 30 years in the industry and helping Facets Cloud to do the global expansion. Let me first do an introduction of the companies before we go to the panelist. So OVHcloud is a global company, cloud provider, which operates across Europe, North America, and Asia Pacific. OVHcloud provides variety of cloud solutions, be it private cloud, public cloud, hybrid cloud, multiple options, as you could imagine. OVH has around 46 data centers and cover around 1.6 million customers, right from the smallest of the startups and the largest of the conglomerates. And we have speaker Shiv Kumar from OVHcloud. As far as Facets is concerned, many of you, especially from India, would know pretty well. The Facets Cloud is an advanced Agentic AI cloud infrastructure management platform. We help organizations to standardize, automate, and manage cloud infrastructure across the cloud providers. So the way we have done is we have designed the today's session to provide practical guidance for organizations who are considering a move to OVHcloud. We'll also discuss some of the common migration challenges, key architectural considerations that you need to think about, some of the proven migration approaches, and how platform like Facets Cloud, which is heavily dependent on the Agentic AI, can simplify and accelerate the transition process for you at a much economical way. We'll also explore the benefits of organizations if they are migrating to OVHcloud, including cost, which is a huge consideration these days, infrastructure reliability, data sovereignty, and operational flexibility. As I said earlier, that we are fortunate to have experts from both Facets Cloud and OVHcloud who will share their real-world insights, some of the best practices that today organizations are adopting while migrating their workloads, and what are the lessons that we have learned from real customer journeys. So let me first welcome Rohit. Rohit is a co-founder and VP engineering at Facets Cloud, and also my ex-colleague for that matter. Rohit brings deep technical expertise in system architecture and engineering excellence. Prior to joining and starting Facets, he was a former principal architect at Capillary Technologies, which is a unicorn now, and they recently came with Nike. We also have DVS Shiv Kumar. DVS Shiv, we call him Shiv, is the cloud solution architect at OVHcloud. His role in the company span across cloud engineering and solution architecture. Shiv serves as the primary technical advisor to mid-market and enterprise organizations, navigating the complexity of cloud adoption, digital transformations, and related areas. I hope that this session will remain interactive. So feel free to type in your questions while the session goes on. If you have any questions, I would request you to type in the questions, and our experts are there. We will try to answer them then and there. But it'll also take some logical pauses in between to answer your questions. And towards the end also, we will have question and answers. Post this session, we are also going to send you a specially curated ebook, which is going to be a very handy document for you, for those who are considering the migration to OVHcloud. I will just walk you through quickly an agenda and then hand it over to Shiv. So we'll discuss a bit about where is the market heading as far as cloud is concerned, and what are the major gaps which are kind of compounding and bothering the analysts, bothering the organizations. Then we are also going to do a live demonstration of the Facets platform on how the AI-driven discovery and migration can help you. Not only on the migration, but on the day-to operations, how can you use the Agentic AI infrastructure platform to manage your day-to operations, bring in cost efficiency with lesser resources. We'll also have some data and statistics to share with you and closing remarks. And then towards the end, we can take additional set of questions and answers. So with this, let me welcome Shiv to share his perspective. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Gaurav. Thank you for the introduction. We have an interesting session today lined up with respect to the migrations. And before we jump into the meat of today's webinar, I just want to touch upon a little bit on the challenges we'll be facing in the near future. As we see today, artificial intelligence has become the engine that powers most of today's digital applications. This rapid evolution is reshaping how we create, deliver, and consume services, and it is fundamentally changing the way organizations generate and manage the data. So this is also shaping up new challenges, right? So I'm here to talk about those challenges and what are the solutions for it. So this brings to the first challenge is about secure aspect of your data. Uh, as an end user, how can you maintain control over your data and services? You have an operational risk from non-domestic laws like sudden data access request can interrupt your service or can force a provider to hand over your encryption keys, impacting your service continuity and confidentiality, right? And the second challenge is how can you keep access to innovative technologies. Recently, we have seen how export controls can fence you out of cutting edge AI services and other frontier technologies. There are recent examples that we have seen. How can you mitigate yourself from it? The third challenge is how can we limit the environmental impact with your cloud usage and thereby helping yourself with rising energy cost? Time to think about it. And finally, having access to high performance compute without losing operational control over your deployment. How can you achieve it? Let's move to the solution and let's unpack what is digital sovereignty, right? So, this is an important topic. I think this is something that we need to start thinking about. So, what is digital sovereignty? Digital sovereignty is ability of an organization or an individual to keep full control over their data, application, and digital infrastructure, ensuring that they are stored, processed, and governed by the policies of their own jurisdiction. So, you will have to find a provider who is helping you with it, right? So, who can help you achieve the digital sovereignty, who can address the key areas of digital sovereignty, that is, the data sovereignty, the technological sovereignty, and the operational sovereignty. Also, they need to maintain full security control over the cloud value chain, that is, from chip to the technological stack supported by the governance model. All right. So let's unpack these each pillars, starting with data sovereignty. As data often moves across the borders, organizations need to stay compliant with local regulations while still being able to relocate, process, and analyze the data wherever it creates the most value. Policy enforcement tools combined with data regulations are therefore essential for maintaining visibility and control over who can access the data and under what conditions, right? Technological sovereignty. An open source first, lock in free strategy empowers organizations to stay at the cutting edge of the technology while retaining complete operational control, regulatory compliance, and flexibility to adapt their infrastructure to their evolving business needs. And the last one is the operational sovereignty. Operational sovereignty ensures that an organization remains the ultimate authority over its digital operations, safeguarding legal compliances, security, and strategic flexibility. So, when these pillars are in place, you gain resilience against unexpected legal requests, uninterrupted access to the most advanced technologies, sustainable, cost effective cloud consumption. In short, digital sovereignty lets you own your data, your technology, and your operations. So you can focus on the innovation rather than the risk. So you need to identify the provider who is helping you to achieve it. So we have outlined the challenges, we have outlined the solutions. Now the crucial question is How do you transition to a provider that can effectively mitigate these risks? Are you foreseeing these risks today? And how can you mitigate those risks? With that, I'll hand over the floor to Rohit, who will help you to unlock the transition.
Hey, thanks, Shiv. Thanks, Gaurav, for the introduction, and uh, good morning to all the attendees. And Let's just dive straight in. So, as Shiv already covered, sovereign cloud is steadily becoming the need of the day for several organizations, and there are several contributing factors, right? Um, so 80% of the countries have some sort of data localization or data residency requirements right now. And also from Gartner, there are a couple of interesting points that sovereignty initiatives will drive 20% of the workloads from the global away from the global hyperscalers. So that is a very very interesting point, and in fact, the global hyperscalers are also now diversifying into sovereign clouds as well. And Sovereign cloud market is projected to grow to 649 billion by 2033, according to Gartner. So all of these points drive home the need for planning and preparing for you to get to a sovereign cloud when the need be. And also just the fact that there is interest in this webinar also indicates that several organizations are already planning and executing this, and we have seen the same with our customers at Facets Cloud, where we have helped them migrate from public clouds to sovereign clouds, and that is powered by our patented technology. So OVS Cloud provides you an awesome sovereign cloud option, and Fetches gives you the wings to get there, and you get there quicker than you can imagine, right? Like you get there in a matter of days and not weeks or months. um, so 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 how do you prepare yourself so that you are ready to migrate to a sovereign cloud, or any cloud for that matter, on demand, right? So there are two pillars to this, according to us. One is that you should have a single source of truth that describes your complete cloud estate, that makes your application functional. Like, what is that? Is that what are those cloud components that makes your application available for your customers, highly available, their data being protected? All of these have to be cataloged in a single source of truth. Otherwise, when you are about to migrate, or when you have to migrate, you're scrambling to figure out what is in use, what is not, what is for which vertical of the product, things like that. So a single source of truth of your entire catalog, and declarative is what we recommend, so that it is captured in a structured format in its completeness. And the second aspect to it is, one is having your inventory in place, and the second is having portable processes, right? All organizations have some sort of process. So, and it is a very common tendency that if you start with a particular cloud, all of your processes are bespoke to that particular cloud, and that sort of becomes a handicap when it comes to migrations. And it becomes short sighted when your customer demands that, hey, I want my data to be localized in so and so region, and I would want to do it with certain provider, right? That is when you would have to redesign your whole workflows, or maybe implement, which is even worse, implement a parallel process just for that particular provider. So the choice of so while we are spoiled for choice for providers that can enable us with sovereignty and freedom, the choice is only actionable if you are prepared, and if you have prepared for it in a platform centric manner. So this is where Facets comes into picture. So Facets actually takes care of both of these core needs. Um, so one is that at the heart of Facets is what we call the blueprint. You can make an analogy of a blueprint of a city, or a blueprint of a building, right? It has all the sufficient information in one place, which is required to actually manifest that particular building or a city, whatever it is. So you can think of your Facets blueprint as your cloud inventory, in a declarative fashion. So that would include everything, right? It would include microservices, databases, caches, queues, your actual network configuration, as well as monitoring components, the dashboards you would need, alerts, all of that stuff in one single declarative catalog. And now the declarative format is completely up to your platform's team or your cloud engineering team's standards. They can design what are the factors that are configurable, what are the factors that are baked in, and all of these declarative you know a service or a database, all of these declarative elements gets translated into infrastructure as code. So we advocate for OpenTofu or Terraform or Tecton related pipelines to manifest these, and your cloud automations team can actually implement it, or as we'll see, our AI assistant can build it for you, meeting with your standards. So you create an abstraction layer, which is your blueprint, and then Facets takes care of converting it into infrastructure as code that maps to your cloud provider of choice. And this is not without flexibility. Anything that any translation that Facets does from the blueprint to the infrastructure as code is completely your control. It is the Terraform modules or OpenTofu modules that you would write and you would maintain. um, yeah, so this is the core of the platform that helps any organization convert a blueprint into deployments on the cloud. It could be the same cloud, or it could be the same blueprint driving deployments in multiple clouds. It could be either of those two posters. Now, coming to the migrate, how now in from a migration perspective, you always would need to start with the blueprint itself, right? You would need to construct the blueprint, and spending human effort to get there is one way. But in the days of LLMs and all of the options that we have, Facets have opted to build an AI layer on top of it, which is the Facets Cloud Migrator application. What it helps you do is it helps you reverse engineer your blueprint from your current deployment in whichever source cloud you are on. So we work on your source cloud account read access, as well as an anonymized usage report, bill and usage report, to discover your estate, and then map individual services to the corresponding ones in your target cloud. In this particular example, the live demo that we'll see how we are able to port an application from a public cloud onto OVHcloud. With the read access, we are able to map out the inventory, and with the billing access, we are able to identify what services get used and also project the cost in the target system. So both of these things coupled, so the core Facets platform, which is a blueprint driven infrastructure orchestration, and the Facets cloud migrator application, which leverages AI to discover your blueprint. These two things help your migration journey smoothen out. So now I'll just jump into my demo.
Yeah, let me take pause here just to see. There is one question, Rohit, and if you want to go through that, Suraj has asked this question.
Sure.
Maybe at least you consider that while you're showing the demonstration, you can answer that.
Exactly. So Suraj, in fact, has highlighted a question that we'll quickly get into, because he has highlighted that in most migrations, people just spend time figuring out what they have, right? Their estate, and how can our platform help there? Is This is literally what we would see in the demo right now. Um, let me just quickly answer that from the demo itself. So this is the cloud migration center of the Facets application, and I have a project where I have a hobby project, a pet clinic project that we are moving from a public cloud onto OVH, right? uh, the first thing that you see is the cost and usage mapping. So you can upload a file with your spend in your source cloud, and we would first analyze each line item, project it to the corresponding line item on the target cloud, which is OVH, and project the cost for you. And the total cost is projected, and also it would highlight what services becomes free on your target cloud, what are the extra services that you are paying for in the target cloud, and whatnot. So this gives you a very good idea of how to budget for, and whether financially the migration actually makes sense for you. Uh, In this particular case, you can see that there are a few VMs that have been mapped to the corresponding SKU on OVH side, and it's ending up cheaper. And also, there is a Kubernetes service that was being charged in the source cloud, which is no longer charged in OVH. So that is the first part where you provide your bill and you get a picture of what you would end up spending. Now, next comes the discovering resources part, which is where Suraj's question is relevant. So you start by selecting your cloud account where you want to scan. So it would be a read access. So all each cloud have their own way of uh, you know uh, delegating access to our application, and we support all the public clouds, and most major cloud providers are already supported. And adding support for a new is also super trivial. So once you have linked your source cloud account, you select your target. So in which case it is OVHcloud, and then this is the first part where you get some control as to what you need to discover, right? So it most cloud accounts is just vast and spread across with lots of environments, probably even experimentation related cloud resources. So you would want to scope down your resources a little bit to understand what is actually that is needed to be ported. So this is the first manual input there. You can choose multiple of these boundaries, right? So in this particular case, I have selected a boundary that is a network. Say, so you ground yourself on this network and then branch outwards, and also a tag. Which is that any resource, there are cloud resources which are not bound to a network. So how do we discover that? So you can say that, hey, also discover anything with this particular tag. Per clinic prod is the tag that I've used in my source cloud. So it would go ahead, scan for everything that belongs in this network, as well as anything that contains this particular tag. And you have option to add more boundaries, as well as let the AI suggest a few boundaries as well, because AI can be smart in that way that it can drop all the irrelevant tags for you and show you the relevant ones. And once you have defined the boundaries, the next step is actually running the scan itself. Now, to answer Surya's question in a little bit more depth, at this point, our AI takes a look at the bill as well as the cloud access that is delegated to it, to superimpose and figure out what services it should be considering. And it would weed out anything that is outside of the boundary. And then it also does a further analysis, that is whether a resource is dormant, whether it has been serving requests in the last 6 months, or the metrics could vary from resource type to resource type. But that is where we use a combination of AI and deterministic steps to weed out dormant resources, so that you are only migrating what actually is making your application function, right? Like what the stuff that makes your application tick. And so the first view that you get is an actual inventory of the building blocks that make up your application, which is essentially what goes into the blueprint. So here it has identified that, hey, this application has a network, a Kubernetes cluster, Postgres, and a couple of ingresses, a few microservices, a few Helm charts, an object store, and also a key value store, right? On the source cloud, it has discovered all of these things. And Facets comes with certain reference implementations for OVS cloud, and for most of the cloud providers out there. And it has mapped those resources to using those particular modules. When I say modules, these are OpenTofu or Terraform modules that create the abstraction for a network and then fulfill that on the cloud for you. You can also tweak these. So at any point in this whole process, you can continue on chat, and you could say that, hey, I don't want to use the reference module for OVH network from Facets. I would want to tweak it to have so and so extra posters, right? You're always free to do that, and it would update that module. It would replace network OVH with network OVH custom, and put it over there, right? So it is now cataloging the inventory against the actual automation to use. Now, some of the interesting things is, like, if there is a technology that is cloud specific, but there is an API compliant one on the target cloud that is automatically discovered and mapped. So in this particular case, the object store on OVH is compliant with the object store on the source cloud, and that is mapped. And the last the last item, where I have a key value store, there is no API compliant managed offering on OVH cloud, but the AI is intelligent enough to figure that, hey, I do have an open source self-hosted option for it, and I would rather suggest that than just ignore it altogether. So it highlights it, and it has suggested to go with Scylla DB, which is an APA compliant replacement for the managed offering on the source cloud. You can again continue on chat and say that, hey, I do not want to go with Scylla, I would rather re-platform my application to using Mongo. And then it would make the choice, update the choice, and map any of those resources against a Mongo database and proceed accordingly. So yeah, so this is the first step in terms of discovering the catalog in a flat manner, where you map it against the automations. And once that is done, next comes the other critical part of Surya's question, which is dependency graph creation, right? So none of these things make sense in isolation. The network exists there to host the Kubernetes, to host the Postgres. It needs to be wired in, the right subnets needs to be wired in for the right resources. All of that is done in the next step, where it would create a complete graph for you. It would not only create the complete graph for you in terms of provisioning dependencies, but also runtime dependencies, like if your application depends on Postgres as well as the SiloDB, the environment variables, or the config map or the secret that you use would also be referencing the outputs of that module, rather than just be floating and let the users configure themselves. So once you finish this step, what happens is, in the core platform, let me switch my tabs to the Facets product itself. There you would get a blueprint that is already configured, right? So you can see here that the pet clinic service is an island that has a, like, let me
Sorry,
just show you.
Rohit, actually, there is a Nick. I think you're trying to say something. What that link facets tab? I missed.
Sorry. um,
While you doing the demonstration, I think there was a link that you showed, and then Nick has missed that. So
the link to the so what you see here is the Facets control plane. That is our product, and we have you can sign up on our website and get access to a control plane, if that is what the question is. Yeah, I don't see the question right now, but yeah.
it is there in the chat actually.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's in the chat. Yeah, so I think so Nick, every of our customer gets a dedicated control plane. So once you sign up on the control plane, you would have access to both the AI Facets AI product as well as the Facets control plane. Yeah. So it has so now I am zoomed in on the pet clinic service. So I can see that it is linked to the ingress. There is a rule that is pointing at the service, and it depends on the Kubernetes cluster. And there is also dependencies on the Scylla DB as well as the Postgres that has been discovered. So if I go in depth and look at where those references have come in, it has come in the environment variables for the Postgres credentials and the Scylla DB endpoint and the S3 endpoint. So essentially, the blueprint has the complete blueprint has been reverse engineered for you, and in our experience, it is very close to fully accurate, like 90% accurate in terms of all of the wirings. And once you have the blueprint in place, this is where the magic kicks in, and you can create environments on the fly. So I have already launched an environment, and it is running. There are a few other environments that I've kept in a stop state, but I can launch them at any point. From I can do this from the UI. I can do this from a CLI as well, where I just need to fill in my OVH related credentials, and I should be good to provision my application on the cloud. If there are any secrets or some or things like that that needs to be prompted while the launch needs to happen, that also would be prompted in the launch wizard itself. Yeah, so that that is how you would that is how a migration journey looks like. So you connect your source cloud and provide a bill. It would reverse engineer a blueprint, and once the blueprint is in place, you can create environments and test your application over there. So the dev environment that I have, this is where I would do my functional testing of the application and make any corrections that I need to back into the blueprint, and I'd be good to launch my pre-prod and prod uh, in a matter of a few minutes, right? I don't need to uh, you know um, I don't need to spend effort in provisioning it all over again. That is and Let me just share my OVS console as well. So in this particular case, it has created managed PostgreSQL database for OVS per clinic, and I also have a managed Kubernetes cluster where all of my workload is running as well. So essentially, this gives you the confidence to migrate with confidence and not hope. You are guaranteed that you are not missing out on anything, and in our experience, all of the migrations have been a few days worth of work rather than weeks. Of course, it varies with the workload size, and all of the automations, since we are automating everything from day one, right? Like the very first mapping that you do is against an automation. We ensure minimal disruption also, and also we are ready with your standards from day one. So oftentimes this is something that I've seen where people migrate their workload off to a new cloud, and that is when they would try and be compliant with the standards that they have to. But since again we are doing automation from day one, all of the modules can be pre-baked with all of the compliances and the standards that you need to adhere to.
Yeah. So Rohit, one question. I mean, can you, for the audience actually, can you quantify the impact that we create
Yeah.
using the platform?
Yeah. Gaurav, as we mentioned, so different scales of infrastructure have different complexities. But oftentimes, what we have seen is that a small or medium infrastructure is anything within a 10-day period, 10 working day periods is when we can deliver the whole thing. While doing it manually would be several weeks of effort, and also several iterations to figure out what got missed, and testing cycles and all of that. And automation and compliance would come as an afterthought, so that is not even included in the 3 to 4 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks that we estimate. And for large infrastructure, it's just a colossal difference from months to a few weeks. And even there, the few months that you would take to port an application onto a new cloud comes with a lot of operational overhead as well, which again we'll see in the next part of our demo, which also Facets evens out. Oftentimes, you spend a lot of effort and money to get to a new cloud, and then operationally you find yourself a little bit underprepared, right? So that is also something that we mitigate in our product, which we'll see in our next session. I'll take a break here and see if there are any other questions that we have.
Yeah, there are a few questions, Rohit. I think you kind of answered the one, but maybe you might want to double down on this.
Sure. Let me just go to Q&A. Suraj's questions we have answered. Yeah, a common issue is that teams think they are moving just Kubernetes, but workload actually is tied to a lot of load balancers, IAM. Yeah, this is a great question. So oftentimes people tend to focus only on what is the estate on Kubernetes, and forget about all of the other dependencies that are on the cloud. Not just forget, even if they include that, oftentimes the IAM delegation, allowing your applications to access those cloud resources, is something that is overlooked. So all of these things do come under our AI discovery scope, and our reference modules are designed in such a way that it is intuitive to provide access to cloud resources to applications, right? This is a common pattern, and our reference modules are built in such a way that that becomes a natural consequence rather than something that you have to engineer for. uh, yeah, so you can take a look at, link to the open source repositories where our reference modules are, and you'll get an idea of how we design these modules. Yeah. um, how we are ensuring how we are saving time on migration, and how we are ensuring that AI doesn't amplify the redundancies during migration. That's great. So as we have already covered, uh, So the savings mostly come from auto discovery, where the AI is able to discover things on its own, and also implement the automations for you, because it just needs to know your organization standards, and it can implement the modules for you. That is where all of the speed and agility comes in terms of migrations. And To answer the second part, the redundancies part, yes, that is, during discovery we try to weed out everything based on bespoke metrics of that particular resource on that cloud, to try and figure out if it is getting used as well. And certain advanced migrations, we also let the AI look into some amount of source code, so that it can figure out the right path and eliminate any of the redundancies, as mentioned in the question. Yeah, so the confidence score is something that we don't display on the portal, but yes, each actually what happens is the AI agents, it's a team of agents, and each agent comes up with discovery results, and there is always a devil's advocate agent always cross questioning it if the confidence score is low. So we don't surface it to the UI, but we make sure that we are well above the 80% threshold that we strive for. Cool. I think I'll just quickly jump on to the day two operations aspect of it. So, as I touched upon, there are moving to a new cloud is one thing. Getting your application up and running there on the new cloud is one thing, but operating it with with confidence is something that you gain with time. And of course, your team needs time to adapt to the new cloud, and any amount of pre-production workload is not the same as the production workload. So, which is why you have the Facets AI assistants, who are the cloud experts at your disposal to help you with a bunch of things, right? There are a few several agent personas that help with this, but I would double down on the incident responder and release engineer AI agents. So let me go back to the Facets portal. So the incident responder is you can think of incident responder as an L1 engineer on your team, right? Who looks at alerts, triages it, and suggests the required fixes, and if needed, can also perform the fixes for you. That's exactly what incident responder is. For incident responder to function, what you have to provide is a trigger based on which it would get to know of new events. Some of the cool triggers that people always use is Slack or Mattermost or Teams, so that it looks like it is a human in the loop in your chat itself, and you can converse on that platform itself. In this particular case, I have configured a webhook directly from Alert Manager, so that the alerts are directly incoming onto the incident responder agent. So this is how it would know of the incidents. And now to debug, it would need certain accesses, right? So since this environment is the OVS Pet Clinic dev environment is provisioned using Facets, the Facets AI agent already has access to the cloud. It knows what Kubernetes cluster it is running on, and all of that information is already available. It also knows the inbuilt metric store that is within the Kubernetes cluster, which is Prometheus. So all of that is more than enough information for it to debug an incident. So here I have an incident where the pet clinic service pods are not ready right now, and immediately as I open it, the agent has created a visual description for me to quickly understand that, hey, there are two problems here. The application is undersized, as well as the startup probes are failing because I'm hitting the threshold too quickly. It also gives me a quick summary and also the recommendations for what needs to be done. So increase the CPU limits and then increase the startup probe. And the cool part here is I can continue on chat and discuss about this issue, or even ask it to fix the issue for me, right? Make the required changes to fix this, and it should pull up the blueprint, look at the pet clinic service configuration, and go make the changes for me. So this is sort of related to the release engineer as well. I have another example there of let's say I have moved to OVH and OVH cloud, and I have the requirement to actually upgrade my Postgres DB. So I've just initiated a chat with the release engineer, and I've told that, hey, in the OVS Pet Clinic, I need to upgrade the database in my dev environment. That's the only line that I've said. And it uses the CLI tool to interact with the blueprint, and then ask me a question. It tells me, it first summarizes to me that, hey, you're running Postgres 15, and the sizing of the SKU of it is DB14, which gives you 80 GB disk, and there is one node ready. And then it asked me, upgrade could mean several things. Do you want to upgrade Postgres version, or do you actually want to resize it? And I did answer that I want to resize it, and it recommended me to go to DB17 as a sizing, and it actually made the changes in the blueprint over here, and performed the release. And that has resulted in that has resulted in my managed database being upgraded from DB14 to DB17 over here in OVHcloud. And that is coming from a developer who did not know of the SKUs, did not know how to operate on OVHcloud, or nor did have to write any Terraform for doing any of this stuff. It was just 2 lines of plain old English, and the work was done. So this is how the Facets AI also simplifies your day-to operations. There are many more agents that you can build. You can connect your MCPs, you can connect your Git repositories, and enrich it further, and make sure that it is giving more tailored responses to your use case. Yeah. So overall, the Facets platform plus the AI layer on top of it gives you a single abstraction for multiple clouds. You can migrate with confidence as a consequence, and also operate with confidence from the day you migrate. Yeah. So
Thanks, Rohit. This is interesting. And yeah, so look, the overall impact that we create is much deeper in terms of the time taking to the migration drops by almost 30% to 20%. The effort also drops in the similar quantum, and same as the cost, right? So I think, if we have done multiple interactions with the analyst, and both OVHcloud and Facets Cloud is being covered extensively by the Gartner. Few of the analysts have personally told me that you should start marketing it as a world's first agentic AI infrastructure management platform, because the degree of automation that we brought in, the efficiency as well as the accuracy we brought in is like pretty cool. And the good part is the platform is available both in the SaaS and the PaaS version. So anyone wants to start, you can start with the SaaS and can move the PaaS on whatever works for you. Now, we serve a number of clients which are the small startups to the large complex conglomerates, which has hundreds of environments that they want to collapse and by way of using the Facets Cloud. So yeah, if there are any questions, then we are happy to take it. But post this call, we are going to send you an ebook which is co-designed by OVHcloud and Facets Cloud that will give you deeper understanding of how the migration can happen and what are the benefits that you can expect out of such migrations. Do reach out to us if you have any further queries, and we are happy to interact with you. We are also open to do POCs if that helps you. So thank you once again for joining us. Thanks Rohit, thanks Shiv, thanks Himanshu, all around. Thank you so much and appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
thank you.
Thanks.